This film was widely reported as being one of the most violent and gory in recent years, and they weren't lying.
You have a very special nature. One we've worked hard together to unlock. Pull me out.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Luke's Reviews, and on today's video, prep your stomachs and get ready for one hell of a mind because this is my review of Possessor. Andrea Riseborough plays Tassia Voss, an assassin who works for a secretive company that possesses the technology to transplant one person's subconscious into another's. This allows them to carry out hits under the guise of someone else, killing both the target and the host by the end. However, during a mission, Tassia quickly becomes compromised when her host Colin begins to resist the takeover. Possessor is a very cool film with a very cool premise that in the hands of other directors could have been something else entirely different. For example, if you were to give this film to Michael Bay, I would imagine you'd get a high-octane $200 million blockbuster action extravaganza. In the hands of someone like Christopher Nolan, it would be more akin to something like a large-scale cerebral thriller that will somehow have the concept of time thrown in for good measure. But with Brandon Cronenberg at the helm, son of Master of Gore David Cronenberg, Possessor is as far removed from those two examples as possible. It's undoubtedly a science fiction premise, but Cronenberg steers his ship into intense psychological territory anchored by extreme, unsettling body horror. I think what I love most about Possessor is the concept and how it's executed itself. For example, the technology used in the film isn't flashy, it's very retrograde, it feels dirty, which is what the atmosphere and the overall tone of this film is sticking to. It's very clunky, mechanical, you get the sense that it could go wrong at any point. And I like the fact that it didn't just jump into the main story right away. We see a quick glimpse of Tassia at work, implanted into another person, finishing off a mission before she then starts to begin prep for her next mission. And that's when Cronenberg begins to subtly explain the rules of this profession without ever spoon-feeding us the information. There isn't a scene where a character is just regurgitating exposition for us. Instead, we're seeing sequences where Tassia is prepping for her next mission and she's having to basically learn as much as she can about Colin, played by Christopher Abbott. And this involves her learning his cadence, his mannerisms, his vocabulary, everything so she can make him as convincing as possible when she is controlling him. There is this undeniable attention to detail that Cronenberg is supplying to make sure that this world feels as fully realized as possible. And it also turns out that Brandon Cronenberg is a pretty damn good director too. There are some stunning visuals on display here. There are some arresting ones too, but his use of colour and jarring editing techniques are remarkably well realised. This is very close. I don't think it's quite there, but it's very close to saying that it is visionary level work going on here. I think for Brandon Cronenberg, this is going to be the start of what is bound to be a really interesting career. I thought Andrea Riseborough was pretty good in the film, although she doesn't appear for as much as you might expect, because this is very much Christopher Abbott as the driving force of the movie, and he is easily the MVP of the entire film. As Colin, he's having to kind of play a version of Colin that is being controlled by Tassia, so has to, in part, play Tassia, and then when kind of complications arise and you aren't quite sure who's in control, alternate between the two at the same time, sometimes within the space of a single scene, even a second. It is outstanding work by Christopher Abbott. You may recognise him from It Comes at Night. I thought he was very good in that. But this I honestly think he gives one of the best performances of the entire year. He blew me away. And it's the idea of control that Possessor excels in, whether it's the illusion, or I think more appropriately, the manipulation of control. Cronenberg deliberately crafts scenes and sequences of these horrific events that Colin is committing, or the physical entity of Colin is committing, but he never explicitly states as to whether it's Tassia or Colin actually committing these acts, being the one in control. Also, yeah, the violence. It's strong. It's incredibly gory at times. If you have a weak stomach, don't bother. Don't put yourself in that position. You won't handle it. And if you do have a strong stomach, let me just say that Possessor is definitely willing to test that theory. As for any downsides, there are the occasional leaps in narrative logic that it takes towards the third act ever so slightly, and there are some plot threads that are left hanging, including one about Sean Bean's character that seemed as if it was going to go somewhere interesting and then just kind of fizzled out. But on the whole, Possessor was a gripping, original movie, effortlessly blending the world of psychological sci-fi with stomach-churning body horror. Brandon Cronenberg makes himself a filmmaker to keep a very keen eye on, and Christopher Abbott gives a performance that, look, if perhaps the Academy weren't so wary of the horror genre, in my eyes should be a potential candidate floating about, or at the very least, in the discussion. So I'm going to give Possessor an 8 out of 10. Anyway guys, those are my thoughts on Possessor. Let me know, have you had a chance to see the film yet? Is body horror your kind of thing? I know for some people it's a bit like Marmite, they either are all for it or they want to stay as far away from it as they possibly can. But I also want to know, what is the most violent movie you have ever seen? And as I'm sure some of you are aware, we are so close to completing the road to 300 subscribers. So if you are watching this video, you have enjoyed yourself, but you are not yet subscribed, please click that subscribe button and I promise you won't regret it. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the links to my social media accounts, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and my letterbox are all in the description below. And if you haven't liked the video, what are you still doing here?